My Gavan and Melanine, and well met indeed. I am Arakir Galajerthan, the head of the modding team behind Divide and Conquer, and welcome to the next faction overview, this time of the clans of Dunland. The Dunlendings, Dunland, any of the above. Dunland do have some unique scripts, and as ever, to try and show you, though, where you'll learn about these scripts, I have started this at the beginning, although it will jump in a moment to where I normally start. So the reason I've left this message up is just because if you want to know about uniting the clans and the Dunland Rises script, all the information is present in this message. So it's very worthwhile having a read of it. But for now, that'll be all. I'll see you in a moment. Here we are, where we begin. Turn 2. Those things are always amaze me. Because, of course, for you, no time passes whatsoever. So me saying that's all for now doesn't mean anything. But, of course, for me, there's been a few minutes. Anyway, Dunland. So before we get onto their scripts, let us begin with the size of their domain and their initial starting army. Well, Dunland begin in the hills of Dunland and the lowlands of Dunland. Hills of Dunland, northern and southern Dunland. These are 3 regions in all: Dunyard, Dunlorak, and Beirig. Clearly Dun being a theme of the Dunish faction. So your domain isn't very big, 3 regions. It's not massive, it's not going to win you any awards, but it is still not one region. You've always got to look for the positives. Your capital is Dunlorak, but your armies, let us have a look through those first. So in your capital, there's a small army, couple of units of basically beginners. A unit of beginners in Beirig, along with Merlin. And in Dunyard, there are 2 more units of militia. Militia, not beginners. As you might well see, the King Arthur movie has so many portraits taken from it for various factions in this game, which is why I just called him Merlin. In our Gondor campaign, I constantly bang on about Galahad. Anyway, side note there. So your initial army is very small. Your initial wealth is 7,000. So after 1 turn of me not doing anything, we only gained 835. So small profit margin, small starting numbers, small starting money, small starting regions. Dunland's not a insta-power nation. So your leader, capital, unique bodyguards. Dunlorak is your capital, where you will find Chieftain Yag Thak, your leader. Chieftain Yag Thak looks like that, just there, and he has as his bodyguard the Guardians of Dunland, one of Dunland's best units. A strong defensive unit requires the uniting of the clans, so similar to Enedwaith, they share a lot of traits with Enedwaith. Over in Beirig, there's Menthar, and that's what a standard Dunland general looks like, and Menthar has Beast Slayers as his bodyguard, Dunland's arguably best archer unit. So it's always useful having an archer general at the beginning because it gives you that much needed buff. And then down here, your faction heir, Hunt Master Freka. There you go, again, just looking like a standard general.
As you command.
He has Eisenmach Axeman, so a very aggressive general, but he's quite easy to be killed with arrow fire, so you'll have to watch out for that. The standard Dunlending bodyguard, I can't actually show you till we get to the battle map side, because of course no one has one at the start for Dunland. So you've got 3 unique generals. Now do note that anybody who is your faction leader will look like this. This is not unique to Yag Thak, this is unique to whoever is the leader. So you can always spot your leader on the field because he's the only one with a red cape and gold armour. A standard Dunish captain looks like that. So there's your general, and there is your captain, and there's your faction leader. Now your unique bodyguard location is Wolf's Hall in Dunlorak. Named, of course, after arguably the only famous Dunlending ever, Wolf. A couple of your units are also named after him. And if you are unsure who Wolf is, he's the only Dunlending to sit upon the throne of Meduseld in Edoras and to rule so both Dunland and Rohan at once. He was swiftly ousted, though, very quickly. Something like a year, I think, before he was kicked off the throne. But he claimed the throne, usurped it. So he's a famous Dunlending. Right, so Rebel expansion, where are you going to go? Well, you can go to Heret, which sits upon a hill in the centre of Enedwaith. It's also got a fort to the south there with a nice tree border, and there's a hill range protecting Heret in the province of Heretshire. You can try and beat Isengard to Bregnas, but you've really got to think quickly to try and beat them to Bregnas. They'll go very, very quickly to that. Additionally, Isengard have a real hankering, nay, a hungering for Heret. They come for this like it is gold dust. And I really don't know why. I just cannot understand why. That is more important to them than, say, Gund or even going out to Balorn. They love this region and they go so quickly for it. But this is one of your rebel options. But the real options for you are, of course, to the north. You can try beat Imladris to Ostinithil, although if no one gets in Ostinithil, I think by turn 15, then Imladris auto get it anyway in a little script. And of course, you've got the Tharbads. The Tharbad and Royal Tharbad, which is the distinction I've used for these two. And of course, these battle maps do indeed look like Osgiliath when you fight them, which is a nice little addition. You've got the two Tharbads there. Once you get beyond the Tharbads, all of the northern side of the Gwathlo is available to you, from Keloniac through Matraith down to Argond and eventually to Siduri. But once again, Enedwaith will be trying to beat you to Siduri, so you'll have a trouble trying to reach that first. So then your neighbours and diplomacy. We'll start with your actual diplomacy. You're allied to Isengard, and only Isengard. But you are at war with Rohan, Bree, and Khazad-dûm. Now, something to note as Dunland in the later versions of the game, i.e. version 2 and beyond, or even 1.2 and beyond, is that you now actually border the mountains. So if the dwarves of Khazad-dûm make it to Khazad-dûm West, they will border your heartland, and trust me, they will come for you. So you probably will be fighting dwarves if they can take Khazad-dûm West. If they don't take Khazad-dûm West, you'll never see them. But of course, if they do, you will then immediately be on their hit list. So Bairig is going to be a key location for you in the later stages of the game, when the dwarves get up to scratch. But your actual neighbours then, aside from the dwarves, are of course the Misty Mountains, who you are neutral with and can ally or enemy. Imladris, who you're neutral with, can ally or enemy with them as well. And of course Enedwaith, who also you are neutral with, but can ally and can enemy. Enedwaith are set to be sort of neutral towards you in the files. So they will 50% of the time attack you, 50% of the time they'll leave you alone. So it's up to you whether or not you want to attack them first or whether you want to chance it and see if they don't attack you. But one of your key scripts revolves around claiming all of Enedwaith, so it's normally best to try and beat Enedwaith as quickly as possible, but we'll talk about that in a moment. So then on to your economy. Your economy is heavily linked to the script that is still in place and may well stay for Dunland, and that's the Dunland Rising. So at the start of the game, your economy is average. You're a Wildmen faction, so you don't go above Large Town, you don't get any cities, and you don't upgrade castles beyond Castle, which is a second tier. So you never get a stronghold, and you'll never get a city or a large city. So you're never going to have the best economy because you just don't get the highest tiers of the towns. You also don't get all buildings. There's some buildings that are cut off from you. But guild-wise, if you have a look at your guilds, you get a Gathering Hall. No, sorry, that's your a Fighter's Pit is what I want. You get the Fighter's Pit, which gives you an experience bonus to troops trained, and then wider experience bonus. And that's it in terms of the guilds. Your Master Builder are a Carpenter's Hut and a Master Carpenter's Hut, giving you reduced construction, or cheaper construction. And you do at least get roads, though. So, but the reason I say your economy is linked to the script, is, which I will cover, and we can lead on to that. Now, the Dunland Rising script. Now, Dunland have certain features locked off to them. And these are ports, siege equipment, and your two best units. And to unlock these features, Dunland needs to be, on this scale, the overall faction ranking, you need to be in the top 10. So once you break into the top 10 factions in the game, you will unlock the ability to build ports. So then you can actually build ports along the Gwathlo River. And this is all described with flavor text at the beginning of the campaign, as I say. So initially then, because you are just a hill-like people, you've got no links with each other, you've been beaten back by Rohan quite substantially. Saruman basically has to rile you up to get you to go to war again in Divide and Conquer. That may well not be what actually happens in the book. I'm not too familiar with the Dunlanding backstory, save for some certain key events. So the premise is that you're basically a scattered, leaderless people. And so to be able to build the larger ports is going to take your nation coming together and Saruman's assistance. But Saruman is only going to assist you when he feels you are worthy. So when your nation is in the top 10, you then get the ability to build ports. When your nation is then in the top 8, you get the ability to build siege equipment. And then finally, when your nation is in the top 5, you unlock your two best units, the Eisenmach Raiders and Eisenmach cavalry, which you will see in the other half of the video. So that's the first script for Dunland, the Dunland Rises script, and it blocks off your ports, your siege equipment, and your best units. And once you get to certain key stages of the overall faction ranking, you unlock these things. Now, the other script for Dunland, of course, is the Enedwaith United script, or Unite the Clans script. And many of you will know what this is from the Enedwaith side. Well, it's exactly the same for Dunland. You have to take all of Enedwaith, and once you do, you can then build an Enedwaith clan hall or a union hall. I can't remember what it's called in the actual game. It's called a unity hall in the files. But and from this, you then are able to train the Guardians of Dunland, which are arguably your best force. Inspiring of nearby troops, make a shield wall, is skilled against mounts, excellent stamina, very good morale. Good morale response, bonus against cavalry. They have a 24 total defense with a 9 attack. They're very, very powerful. But they require all of Enedwaith to be united. And of course, to unite Enedwaith, you are going to have to kill off the faction that is known as Enedwaith. So you are likely to have to fight them if you want your best unit. Now, you're going to say to me, but Galu, how on earth do I know what regions I need to take? And I've provided this for you because I got asked it about 1 million times. So if you head to Chieftain Yagthak, you will find the Wooden Crown. And the Wooden Crown, though simple and unassuming, once sat upon the head of the elected king of all of Enedwaith. Long before the Númenóreans came out of the east, that needs another accent, the lands of Enedwaith and Dunland were united and peace reigned. The crown has since been handed down the Dunnish side of the clan split, and now resides with the current chieftain of the Dunlendings. The crown may once again denote true power over Enedwaith should the following regions come under Dunlending control. So you need the following: Nelchalún, Maulfin, Caladir, Erunvorn, the Bay of Isen, Parthior, Cairil, Druaithior, Malranaith, Saraline, Heorotshire, Lugia, Hills of Dunland, Southern Dunland, and Northern Dunland. Now do note that those are the region names. So to check which regions you have, you simply need to hold down the right mouse button and hover over regions, and they'll pop up underneath for you. So as you can see, those of you that have good memories, Caladir is part of your collection, as is Saraline. So you've got to cross the Gwathlo and take 2 regions that are really part of Minhiriath. But you do not need either the Swanfleet or Ninenilf, which are, of course, the Tharbad regions. So do note that. You don't actually need the Tharbads to unite Enedwaith. It's all in the south down here. And it does not include Fortriu either, so Bregnas does not need to fall. So you can let Isengard have that, there's no bother. So as long as you beat Isengard to Heorot, you should only have to fight Enedwaith to unite the clans. So there's a little note for you. Of course, you also get a garrison script, and you are the wild men. You are wild men, or middlemen as the game calls you, which means you will get a
Your will, my lord.
garrison script in all the regions that middlemen preside, which means that once you take Enedwaith's lands, you'll get a garrison script in their lands. You'll also get a garrison script in Bree, who also use the middlemen culture. However, you will not get a garrison in the Anduin lands, because despite the Anduin having middlemen file culture, they use the Northmen religion, which in-game is, of course, called culture. So these are the Northmen religion. Their culture is wild men. Your culture is wild men, but your middlemen religion, same with Enedwaith. And the Breelanders use the Northmen culture, but the middlemen religion. So you'll get, if any of you kept up with that, you'll get a garrison script in Bree, Enedwaith, and Dunland. But you won't get one in the Anduin. And, of course, anywhere that's rebel, take it, upgrade it once, you'll get a garrison there. So those are all the scripts that affect Dunland. Now we move on to major map changes in the region from 0.52. Well, of course, huge map changes. Number 1, the Tharbads now look like Osgiliath, and if the Northern Dunedain, Gondor or Dol Amroth take these towns, they can now upgrade them to look like Tharbad and Osgiliath in the north. Now, I know that it does just look identical to Osgiliath, and that's not ideal, but that battle map is only used in 2 locations. It's a very cool one, and it's rarely ever upgraded, so to extend it to here was a good idea. And, of course, Tharbad is known for being another major bridge settlement. Of course, famously, when Boromir crossed up north to go to the Council of Elrond, he had to ford the river, and he basically crossed over the ruins of the bridge in the river itself. So it's a very famous bridge city, so it makes sense to link it like that. Of course, Heorot is entirely new, or Hert, and Hertshire is entirely new. And yes, this is entirely based off of Hertfordshire. For those that don't know, I live in Hertfordshire, and Hertford is the name of our county town, and therefore names the Shire, Hertfordshire. But Old English for hart, as in a male deer or a white deer. It's not necessarily always a white deer. A hart is just an old-fashioned word for a male deer or a stag. Well, the Old English for hart is heret, which I believe is pronounced hart, but just spelt very differently. And the Old English for shire is S-E-I-R, but it's still pronounced shire. But you kind of cut the R off at the end there, as you can hear me say. Hertshire. Tricky one to say, but there you are. So that's Hertfordshire, basically. Right, so that's entirely new, of course. Londangren's moved slightly further north than it was before to fix any problems with its battle map. I think that's it. Bregos might be new from 0.52. I'm fairly certain that is really all. Tearthun, of course, came in after 0.52, but that's quite a way north. So major changes for you in version 2. This video was recorded on the 27th of May. Version 2 is not out on the 27th of May 2017. So it's not there yet, but when version 2 does come out, you'll all have access to Hart and Hertshire. Heret. I think that's it in the region changes. So then tips and difficulty. The tips are to attack Enedwaith as fast as possible. Maintain your alliance with Isengard and hit Enedwaith, get them out of the game. Enedwaith sometimes don't really bother attacking anyone, so they can basically just be a huge block against you that doesn't aid you in any way. So obviously sometimes a nation will attack someone you're fighting. You might not be allied with that nation, but they're indirectly helping you. But Enedwaith are very unlikely to do that because your main enemies as Dunland will be Bree and the Northern Dunedain, and Enedwaith tend to not go to war with Bree, they tend to go to war with you more. So rather than have them backstab you later on, just attack them straight away, is my advice. Go for them straight away. You've got the buffer of Isengard. Gondor won't be coming through the north here for too long, but they will attack you once they get up there because they're allied to Rohan and you're at war with Rohan. So they will always attack you. But it's key to get Enedwaith out of the way so you can unite Enedwaith yourself. After that, though, it's kind of free reign. Do what you will. The campaign's not particularly hard, but it's also not one of the easiest for players who might find the game a little difficult. So it's a very middle of the road faction, very middle of the road indeed. But I think that's everything to talk about for the campaign side. So just before I leave for the battle map side, rest assured, I am well aware how absolutely outrageously phallical the regions of Enedwaith look. Do you want me to move the red square so that you can see that? Cut out Londare, and oh my word, it literally looks like a phallus. We're aware of that, and I may well change it just because of how unbelievably, unabashedly it looks like it. So rest assured, we know that. But for now, I'll see you on the battle map. Welcome to the battle map for Dunland. So a quick overview of Dunland shows that they are a massive infantry nation. Really heavy infantry. They've got very few ranged options at all, with only 2 dedicated archers. There are 2 javelin troops in there, but I always consider javelins infantry really, because they only shoot normally 2 or 3 missiles. You've got 3 units of cavalry, but 1 unit is locked. So massive infantry nation. Do note as well that I've popped the Saraline mercenaries in just because we had room, but their stats and this unit is covered in the Enedwaith video. But I've popped them in this video purely just to show that Dunland also can train them. So Saraline mercenaries are available to you, but if you want to know more about them, they're in Enedwaith's video. So we'll start at the very beginning then. I do believe there's only 1 new unit since the last Dunland overview video. So as ever, to get a real detailed sort of overview of the faction, have a look at the old video and just watch the battles side to get a view of their stats. But the Scalds are new. So, at the very beginning then, your first and predominantly militiary unit are the Clan Axemen. So, Clan Axemen have a 3 attack, 3 charge, 4 defense. Not too bad. The general premise between Enedwaith and Dunland is that Enedwaith are the ambush and sort of flank nation. So, they hide a lot more, they fire a lot more arrows and javelins. So, they're a ranged ambush nation. And Dunland are more of a sort of heavy defensive nation that have Saruman's influence. So they've got an awful lot more armour than Enedwaith, and they're slightly more aggressive. So Enedwaith, very lightly armoured, not that high attack, but most of their units can hide. They're very good at ambushing, and their javelin and ranged options are excellent. Whereas Dunland have a higher defence, and that's normally in armour, and their attack's normally quite good as well. So they're entry-level militia, 3-3-4, but poor morale response. Supporting them are the Dunlending Berserkers, who are your flank and strike infantry, and a very good one at that, with an 8 attack, effective against armour, adept at hiding in woods, and they frighten enemy infantry. So their low defence, though, means they will be killed with arrow fire very easily, but it's very important that the enemy does drop them. This is one of the best early game flanking units that there is. So much attention needs to be paid to the Berserker. Also supporting you are the first of your javelin options are the Huntsmen. Now, Dunlending Huntsmen have a reasonably good missile of 7, so they're going to do some heavy damage against more well-defended troops. But once they've run out of javelins, they are your worst militia unit, with only a 3 defense and 1 melee attack. So do be very careful when using them, and as ever, their stats are poor. They get a bonus against mounts and things, because the general idea is that a javelin is probably quite good against a mount. Because it would give some pretty damn strong impact to a horse to be hit as it's running full pelt with a javelin coming the other way. So we've always gone with the theory that javelin troops are anti-cavalry, which makes it even more dangerous when you charge them down. And finally, you have the clan spearmen. So you've got clan axemen to do your attacking, berserkers to do your flanking and to hit decisive areas, and the clan spearmen to hold the line. So they have the highest defense but the worst attack of the 3 militia troops there. Although the berserkers have a 5 defense themselves, so they're not that bad. They are good at the beginning. So clan spearmen, they can also do a Schiltrum, which is good. And they, again, poor morale response. So they're your 4 militia, but they are also supported with a 5th unit, the Hunters, and a 6th with the Riders as well. So the Hunters are your entry-level archers. Now, because you only get 2 dedicated archer units, your entry-level archers are slightly better than they would normally be at this tier, and that is another instance where a game aspect has to take over, really. Now, Dunland, obviously, the fact that you only have 2 archers and one of them's restricted means that you're never going to be winning any arrow battles. Never. You've really got to rely on melee. But these archers will at least do some damage when they're on the field, so they are not to be overlooked. 3 missiles, not too bad, with 165 men means they're going to be doing some good damage. And poor average morale response. Do note that all the Wildmen factions have had a little bit of a tweaking, and they're all slightly larger battalions than their Northmen or Dunedain counterparts, and that's to again highlight the Wildsmen almost orcish-like gameplay style where numbers beat out quality. So that is a feature. Also, I'll talk about a moment about their general gameplay while we're on the battle map, but first of all, the last of their militia, the Dunlending Horsemen. So Dunlending Horsemen, as you can see, do not have a spear, which makes them not as good on the charge. They also ride a basic horse, so their mass isn't as good as the Men of Rohan. But overall, they're good at chasing down enemy units, but they're not very good really at anything else. Their charge bonus is only 4, their attack is only 4, and their total defense is 6, so they're very easily killed. They are one of those few units in the game that really is ideal at just chasing down routing enemies or hitting the enemy in the back where they're not going to take any damage themselves. But in a head-on charge, then they're not going to do that well, so do be careful. So something we have to talk about with every Wildmen faction, just so that you're always aware if you play as them. Wildmen factions excel before the barracks event. So you get choices after the barracks event, which is roughly here where this split is. So you do get some extra choices in the later stages of the game. But your units, and I apologise that I bang on about this all the time, but it's good to say it in each video. Your units are outclassed by everyone else. The only time you really have an edge is in the early game, where you train units faster than Gondor and Northmen. And so you've got more units on the field and you're not that far behind in stats. So before the barracks event, you are some of the best nations in the game. But then when the barracks event really is under the way and really in swing, everyone else outclasses you. So it's quite a slog in the late stages. And that's something to always note when you play as a Wildman. It doesn't mean you've got to rush to win before the barracks event kicks in, but it does mean you've got to be cautious when it does kick in. So we come to your tier 2 then. Some of these, as ever, might be restricted by the barracks event, but this is where stat-wise these units all line up. So in your second tier, your mainline tier, start with troops as we always do. Your bread and butter are Dunlending warriors. So our defense has doubled up from the militia up to around 11. Your attack is 6. Their morale response is impetuous, which means they'll deal with morale shocks well, but their morale is only average. So a good sword and board unit, although they do have an axe. Supporting them are a bit of a weird unit, really, the Dunherd Champions. Now, the Dunherd are good javelin men with 9 missile damage, but they kind of excel more in that their secondary weapon is armor piercing. So their secondary club thing has a melee attack of 7 and is armor piercing. Now combine that with their defense of 9, they make really good berserker units, so flanking units, strike infantry. But couple that with their javelins as well, make them really good just all-rounders. They are quite good units, and they... I always worry when I see an enemy with them, because if they use them well, they can do a lot of damage. But fortunately, the AI is stupid and it won't use them well. But you as a human will be able to do a lot of damage with your dun herds. So always have them in mind. They get 4 missiles, 65 range as well, which is quite good. Now, supporting them at this secondary tier are Mounted Warband. First cavalry unit that will actually do damage, with a 6 attack, 7 charge, 13 defense. So they are good at charging. You can charge them in, no troubles there. Average morale response. And their numbers, again, higher than most other people. And now you have another of the Dunland's quite strange unit. This unit fills a very weird role. Now, they're called Beast Slayers for a good reason. They can hide anywhere, as you can see. They're the only unit on your army that can. They get a bonus against cavalry, and their secondary weapon is a pike. So they are a pike archer unit. They are really good against beasts. They kind of made them to be designed against trolls, and as the description even explains. So their morale is very good. Their morale response is impetuous. So they have a higher morale than they should for the tier that they come into the game. Their melee is only 4, but they are pikemen. Their missile is 5, and their total defense is 8. So remember, they're just pike archers. They're archer pikemen. So they're obviously... The flavor text doesn't assume that trolls are infantry, which is always a bit of a pain. So they actually don't get a bonus against trolls, because of course trolls are infantry, pikes have no bonus. But their arrow fire will get a bonus against trolls, just because they're reasonably good arrows. But they're just very good archers, the ability to hide anywhere, and then the fact that they swap to a pike, one of the game's best weapons, makes them just really survivable. So very good unit indeed. They used to be restricted to the mountains, but they aren't anymore because Dunland have no archers anyway. So slightly above these two tiers then, and in the interim between the top and the bottom, are the Dunlending Warband with a 13 defense, a 4 attack, and a 3 charge. So the similar sort of stats to the Dunlending Warriors, but just slightly higher defense, being shieldmen, spear and shieldmen. There's the stats there. Sorry, yawning. Average morale response. Right, so those are the units that I think become before the barracks event, and then these are the ones that I believe become after, and these are all Wolf's units. So we'll start over here with the Swordmen. So Wolf's Swordmen are your main line late game elites. These are not restricted by the Dunland Rises script. Only the Eisenmach Axemen and Eisenmach Raiders are restricted. So Wolf's Swordsmen are just really good swordsmen. Adept to hiding woods, reliable in woods, so they get a bonus fighting in woods. Their attack is 8, their defense is 17. Now, I do know that that is about the same stats as a Gondorian infantry unit. So Gondor's middle tier is as good as your elite tier, to put you into perspective. Good morale response. So it's showing you that the Beast Slayers really are a weird addition. Or they don't really fill any particular... They fill many roles. In that the Beast Slayers' morale is very good. And they're a tier before your elites. So Beast Slayers are a really good unit. You should try and get them. But supporting Wolf's Swordsmen are Wolf's Pikes, and they all, of course, have Ruadar and voices from Battle of Middle-earth, which sounds good. So Wolf's Pikes, they're Pikes. They're a very good Pike unit with a 5 attack and a 15 defense. Pikes, no matter really what their attack is, it all comes down to their defense. If they have a really high defense, then they're going to last for a long time. Sorry, I had to cough. They last for a long time, and because of their stun lock and outranging enemy animation, their attack doesn't really matter that much, and it really is how high their defenses will decide how good a Pike unit is. So with a 15 defense, this Pike unit is very good. Especially that 9 of that is in armor. So as I say, the late game units for Dunland, they have a reasonably good defense, but a large chunk of it is armor owing to their connection with Isengard, which does also make you very susceptible to armor-piercing units, which, interestingly, Isengard have a lot of. So if you decided to backstab Isengard, you would probably struggle, because they do counter you quite well. Right, so then the new unit for version 2 are the Scald. As you can see, they have a terrible formation. They're not like a mainline battle unit. They have a two-handed sword. But their main purpose is that they can, if I bring it in, chant. So the Scalds are now your morale boosting chant unit. They're shared with Enedwyth, so Enedwyth get them as well. They're a new addition. They're so new that to be done on their description. They inspire your troops. Their chanting obviously inspires your troops, and they make the enemy units afraid. And their attack is 10, and their defense is 16. So they are very good, but their really low numbers means that then they wouldn't do that well. Now, if they had the unit battalion size of the swordsmen or the pikes, they'd be a really good unit. But because they don't have that, they're not that great. And they themselves only have good morale and average morale response, although I'm not sure if that matches up yet. Oh dear, yawn again. I'm tired. Had to get up so early today. So the Scalds are very niche. Their role is to inspire your troops. So get them near to your front line, because the inspire ability works better if you're nearer your front line. You're nearer the troops that are likely to break, and then get them chanting. So that's the point of them. That's why their battalion number is so low. They're in the game to do the chanting, not to do the killing. So then we come to your 3 AOR units and your bodyguard. So these 2 units, the Eismack Raiders and Eismack Axemen, they're restricted. You have to be the one in the top 5 best factions. You can be number 5. And once you've unlocked them, you've unlocked them. It doesn't matter if you slip down again. Eismack Axemen are really good strike infantry. 12 attack, effective against armor, frightened nearby enemy infantry, 14 defense. They will do very well against enemy armor. They're very good late game units. But as you'll note, they need Dunland's homelands, which is the 3 regions you start with. You need those 3 regions to train Eisenmach. And then here are the Eisenmach Raiders. Eisenmach Raiders are just really good cavalry. It would be a shame for Dunland, who do share sort of a cultural link to Rohan. Of course, the people of Rohan came from the north and brought their cavalry with them, and they kind of ousted the Dunlendings when they were given Calanathan by the Gondorians, and they pushed the Dunlendings out. So the Dunlendings and the Rohirrim are not actually blood related, although most humans are going all the way back, but their paths have diverged. But that's not to say that the Dunlendings wouldn't have spent the last 400 or 500 years watching the Rohirrim and learning from them. So we've given them some cavalry. Not amazing cavalry. You're not going to beat Rohan's cavalry, but you at least get some good cavalry. It would be almost unfair for you not to. And the quality of the horse that you're on, unfortunately, is very low. It looks very blurry, doesn't it? Compared to the gentleman riding atop it. Oh, I don't know. It's an old game. But anyway, they're Eismack Raiders. They're good cavalry. 8 attack, 8 charge, 18 defense. Very good morale. So they actually will punch and hit the enemy hard, and they will do a lot of damage. Very useful unit. And finally, the Guardians, the unit that is available if you unite Enedwyth. Now, these are just defensive buggers, and as you can see, they take their armor directly from Saruman. So the theory behind these guys is that Saruman has now recognized you for being a real power, and so he has now taken on your own smiths and taught them how to craft the armor that he has been keeping to himself. And that culminates in the Guardians with an outrageous armor stat of 15. So again, if they come up against an anti-armor unit, their defense will actually only be 17 instead of 24, because it will be effectively halved. Their armor stat will be effectively halved. So cautious when coming up against armor piercing, because so much of their stat is armor. But they're just really good shieldmen. I said that again. Really good spearmen with a really high defense. A good attack for spearmen. They excellent stamina. And of course, build against mounts, and they inspire your troops. But they require a unified Enedwyth, and they come out of the unique building you can build once you have unified Enedwyth. And finally, we come to Dunland's new bodyguard. So in 0.52, they used to just have a version of the swordman, but now they have got a dedicated anti-armor bodyguard. So the chieftain's bodyguard have effective against armor trait and a 9 attack with a 19 defense. They're really good. I thought they were one of the worst, but they've since been changed quite a long time ago now, actually. But they used to be a very subpar bodyguard, but now they're one of the best, because an armor piercing bodyguard is really useful, especially with the high numbers of 77, the maximum replenishment number you can have. With a 19 defense as well, that's just really very good. So a very good unit all round for your bodyguard. So, as ever, let's just line everyone up, give them over to the AI, and start the battle. So, again, this time, let's play a little round of guess who we're fighting against. I'm going to go around a circle once. You get the opportunity to guess which nation we are up against. And, of course, do play with the spirit of the game and comment before we actually find out. But who do you think this might be? Who do you think, from most of the sprites and seeing some of them, there's a bit of a banner there as well. Who do you think this is? Well, we'll go to time 6 as our army gets into position. Their siege as ever. The AI always gets siege when you do the autofill. Well, the enemy is about to break us. I'm about to arrive, so I will show you. It is, of course, the nation that I forgot, the Vale of Anduin. Yeah, they're coming in. Now, the Vale of Anduin use the same sort of models that Dunland kind of use. Ah, there's the Guardians of the Karok, with their new and improved look and shield, and even their new and improved weapon. They used to be totally different. Some of the Aethiode are riding in there. Or Aethiode, sorry. Aethiode. Aethed. I'm all over the place. There's Woodman Rangers firing in from the back there. They've got a new look as well. There's more Karok Guard. Oh, there's just some Ballistai at the back. The catapults firing away. Oh, well, you've sent our cavalry in over there to the Bjorning warriors, who are dropping us like flies. Bjornings have since been given armour as well. There's quite a few changes for Anduin, actually. Their video will be slightly different. There's Aethed cavalry. Woodman warriors charging in. Woodman wardens over there throwing javelins at our front line. Oh, there's the skin changers. The most famous unit from Anduin at the moment. Outrageously good, these units. Easily one of the game's best bodyguard units. Genuinely no understatement there. They're outrageous. There's Bjorning shield bearers, a unit with, I think, one of the highest shield stats in the game. That unit is a direct unit out of a quote from the game that says that the men of the Vale of the Anduin held open the passes of the Misty Mountains against the orcs, and they were stout defenders, I believe Gimli calls them. And it's either Gimli or his father, Gloin, that says this at the Council of Elrond in the book, because Frodo or Bilbo or whoever asks how the dwarves got to Imladris. I think it's Frodo. And they say that the men of the Vale hold open the passes of the Misty Mountains and we made our way through. And so in direct recognition of that, we created an ultra-defensive Anduin unit, which you'll see in next week's episode. There's more of their skin changes, their bodyguard unit. Now, they don't actually have bears. Of course, it's a model that the game can't really handle, speaking almost from experience. But do watch this space, but don't get your hopes up. So there we are. Wild men on wild men. The Karok Guardians, as you can see, are actually slightly taller than normal humans, which gives them no advantage whatsoever, but it just makes them more imposing. They used to have a javelin, they now have a cool two-handed axe. So Anduin are a real aggressive nation, as you will see. They've got some horse archers there. Oh, our army's been obliterated. The Karok Guard move off as if they've lost no one. But there we are. I think I will end it there. So thank you very much for watching, if indeed you have. Oh, and also allow me to just say, for those that have made it to the end, I should have said it at the beginning, I forgot to bring home my notebook in which I write about all my lore videos. So there will not be one this weekend because I left it at work. So it will be next week. And I apologise for that. A longer delay than normal because I stupidly left my notebook at home. And I don't have the time to do the hours of what I read about it. So there won't be a Sons of Feanor video this week, or this kind of weekend, this 5-day weekend period. It will be in the next 5-day weekend period. So that will be next week. But for now, that will be all. So thank you very much for watching, if indeed you have. I'm Arachir Galadirth, and the head of the modding team behind this mod, Divide and Conquer. If you have any questions, pop them in the comments below and I'll get round to answering them. But until we speak again, dear friends, Navar Naden Pedimad Melonin, and farewell.